I'm going to call to order the January meeting of the Kingston Public Library Board of Trustees at 6:02. In attendance, we have trustees Matthew Donahill, Jen Quackenbush, Carolyn Bromwich, Emily Curtin, Library Director Donald Cologne, and Head of the Foundation, Deb Grace. Now, the first thing on the agenda is the minutes approval, and they were sent out, the November and December minutes. I didn't know if anyone had any adjustments or edits that they wanted to note. If not, I'll take a motion to accept both.
To accept both November and December minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Also in attendance is trustee Lee Lewis. Then after the minutes comes the budget update.
Okay, so the only information that I have at this time, because there is further budget meetings coming up. There is actually a department head meeting tomorrow morning, as well as a Board of Selectmen's meeting tomorrow evening that I will be attending, where this potentially the Board of Selectmen's proposed fiscal 26 budget will be discussed and voted upon. So at this time, the town administrator's budget for the library reflects a decrease of $25,000 from what was asked of the library. It was taken from the books and materials budget. I have spoken to the town administrator concerning this and looking at other town departments with their cuts to look at the percentages to see if there is a disproportionate number between the library and other departments. And quite honestly, it's kind of all over the place. So I can definitely say that, we're not, being targeted or anything like that. So basically at this time, that is the only information I have. So hopefully, as the process continues, I believe it's February 5th. I have a meeting to do the library's presentation to the finance committee. So I will obviously argue the point for, full funding of the library so that we meet, all the criteria for certification and, state aid and so forth. We are able to, squeak by with that cut as long as the percentages are in play, and appropriate, but it's kind of wait and see sort of thing.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions about the budget? Not seeing any, then we'll move on to the luminaries recap, which feels like a million years
2
ago.
months ago. Oh, God. I don't even know if I can remember what happened. Let's see. It was really
You
cold.
were dressed as an elf.
Yes, I was dressed as an elf. It was really cold. We had Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus, which was well received. Definitely not the number of families with younger children in attendance.
I think because of the weather.
Absolutely. Off the top of my head, I don't have the numbers for that evening. I think it was a more manageable, controlled size, kind of crowd. The food service folks that were there, volunteering, passing out the goodies and drinks and so forth, did a wonderful job, and we're very appreciative. We have supplies still left over, which will be used at upcoming programs, so that will be good. One of the things that we had done was we had a table with the trains and so forth, kind of moving in motion, kind of, holiday themed items. And that seemed to be a big draw for folks. So we're expanding on that for next year as well. So I think overall, it was successful. A lot of happy people, specifically for the heat.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't think there's really much, other I could say, but it was very well received. And we
Yeah,
did
I thought it
receive a
was
lot
like a
of,
steady crowd considering how cold it was.
yeah,
And I think people appreciated that Santa's pictures were indoors this year, so.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's something that we're already doing a completely different kind of layout flow for next year, where we'll actually have Santa indoors, right in front of the computers, sort of thing. So this will be kind of the waiting area.
Mhm.
So to hopefully move people from the front, to over there.
Great. Thank you for all of your planning and the execution of that.
You know, a lot of people commented too on the flyer, not necessarily knowing where it was from, but the fact that everything was in that one consolidated place. So that was also really well received. So that was good work. I
Thank you, yes.
was like,
Yes.
there's the library.
Yes, yes, yeah. How could I forget about the flyer? That was like the greatest achievement, because it's been something that many folks have been trying to work on, to get done, so that there was one cohesive, information point for the community. There were some bumps. It was, information was shared, and then information was updated, but then not relayed. And by the time printing went, there was some misinformation or changes. For the Festival of Trees, there originally was only going to be 18 trees, and then they upped them to 21 trees, in times and locations of different things. So what that actually kind of, taught us was to really reach out to these partners and give hard deadlines and say, that we'll do our best to have the most up-to-date information on there. However, for any printed materials, at the time, the deadline for that will, be what it'll be, but, we can definitely update the website information with the QR code at any time. So that would have the most up-to-date information, and we would try to push people to that. So I would also have to thank Jana at the clerk's office for creating the luminaries page, and she actually created the QR code for us with the little dinosaur in it, for that. So that proved to be, quite helpful. So yes, so thank you for bringing that up.
That was great.
And then the next item on the agenda is the first time I think we've ever had photographs as part of our prep material
And not in a good
for a
way.
meeting.
Yes, so the Adams Center, Rob, the facilities manager, has reached out to the historical commission in regards to needed repairs at the Adams Center for at least one of the columns, which basically the whole base was completely rotted away. The inside of the pillar,
It's
it
like
shows.
coffee grinds.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so he has been in contact with them to try to figure out a plan of action, to do the necessary repairs as needed and following historical guidelines.
Right.
And so this kind of has brought up a whole big conversation because there is historical work being done over there that is still 10 years in the making, meaning the wooden gutters. It has been kind of a stop and go project with the person who's doing these. Both that and there's other projects in town that they're working on. And so both Rob and I are in agreement that, we want projects to be completed. Obviously, money that had been earmarked for work, from 10 years ago, prices of wood and so forth have gone up. And so there may be a time that I ask the board to kind of make a statement for the, whether it's to the historical commission or others, about looking elsewhere for a different vendor to complete the project. Because it is being done on a very part-time basis. I mean, when I first started here 3 years ago, there was scaffolding up. And at one point, the scaffolding was removed, but the project's not done because I think it's been moved on to, other projects. So we're working on that. as well as the front facade above the doorway of the Adams, the main original entrance. There's some work that needs to be done there as well. And it will be discussed at tomorrow night's meeting. The 2 trees that are in the front lawn, one of them definitely has to come down. And the other one, the arborist is recommending pruning back quite a bit. But there's a 50-50 chance of that one surviving. I personally think that it's going to look atrocious cut back that amount. And potentially, that could go, in the next year or so. But the one that's on the right-hand side, so if you are on Summer Street looking at the building, the big tree on the right-hand side, that is the one that has to come down. It is basically rotted and presents a major safety concern. So it will be brought up at tomorrow night's Board of Selectmen meeting. So along with these projects, besides seeking out the knowledge base for properly, finding the correct vendors to do the necessary repairs, is also a question about finding funding for said projects. Because obviously these things are going to be a lot more expensive. So Rob and I are going to be working together to try to find any type of historical preservation grants, that can be used, for, any of the work, and, try to figure out what the guidelines are and how things, have to, play out with that. So it's going to be kind of a balancing act, because in a way it's kind of like having multiple chiefs, in that, there's us, there's facilities, and then there's the historical commission. So I have to also look into, with it being on the, the National Register, what is the chain in the sense of getting approval, as we are, been put in responsible for managing the building. But as far as these kind of historical repairs and things like that, is it the historical commission that has to give the stamp of approval for every bit of work that has to be done on that, because that's more in tune to, their kind of purview. So there's a little educating that I need to do for myself, with that process. But I just wanted to bring up, these concerns to you guys now, so that you're aware, and as we move forward, that, we can kind of come up with, try to figure out some solutions.
In terms of the structural integrity of the building, is the fact that one of the columns or pillars rotted away, putting undue stress on any other parts of the building?
No, because so what that picture doesn't show is that they have put temporary pieces in for that support, but there is also the other column that's there supporting it, and there was more technical terms explained to me that I don't recall at the moment, indicating that the more support was given elsewhere, closer to the front of the building.
Okay.
That it wasn't just the front, it was this there, and I think there's a railing of some sort that offers support. So there wasn't a safety concern that way, but just for that individual.
And what about weather variables? If we were to get a foot of snow, would that, the weight of the snow on any part of the building, would it be changed because of the way that we have it manipulated in the front?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think so, but I think the fact
guess
that
are
they've
they more
identified it.
ornamental columns, or are they serving? Okay, so if they're ornamental columns, then we
That's
don't really have to worry.
essentially, I was on the original committee
Mhm.
that built or rebuilt the Adams. So these are just to look. pretty.
Okay.
Okay,
They're
but that's
not-
actually good news.
they're not structured.
That gives them not gonna fall
Okay.
on
But the
one.
one problem, once I saw this one, all of the others, including the ones in the back, need to be looked at.
Okay.
Because if this happened to one of them, you may have that problem in
Elsewhere.
Why did it happen?
Were the rear ones not load bearing either?
No,
Okay.
none of them are in the design of the building.
So
So
now a
it's-
fancy nuisance.
Yes. And the other thing to remember is they are hollow. These are hollow. They just look very nice, but that's all they are. So
Smoke and
what you're
mirrors.
looking at is the body of this piece here. This, the Lister is underneath, and that's really what's, you see all of this sawdust is from. It's not from this,
Okay.
Upside,
but they're going to be expensive to do.
Oh, yeah.
because the building's not gonna go down on it.
Yes.
And the other thing is, are there any, has the town at all done any additional look into the outside of the building in terms of what might be weakening in the outside of the building?
I know, so I know that the gutter, not the gutters, the shutters, those have been replaced. And I think that's, I don't know if it was that triggered facilities to take a look at the facade above the doorway, and seeing that it looks like it's pulling away, and whether that's an issue because there are no gutters, I don't know. But I know that that's what he wanted to talk to, I think it was Craig Dalton, who's the chair of the Historical Commission. They were going to try to meet up to, do a site visit and review, to take a look at things and try to identify, and I think the hope is that to identify any and all potential issues, so that we can, build a plan to move forward with that.
Because if we're going to go and request funding or support for investigating how we can obtain funding, then we should probably have our full laundry list of
Absolutely.
requests, rather than piecemeal it and find out in 6 months that this needs also to be looked at.
Yes.
So right after the Adams Center is the director's report.
Okay. So since we were talking about December, and of course, with the holiday and then my week's vacation, I had a lovely time, thank you. Which was actually cool because I think it was the Bahamas that I got off the ship, and a short walk from the pier, there was actually a little free library that was sponsored by one of the cruise lines. So I thought that was kind of cool. So as far as my director's report for the serious things, I attended the quarterly safety committee meeting. One of the discussions that we had was about our forms and policies pertaining to volunteers, that we should have liability language in those forms. So I have to take a look at those and see, what we have. The rep from from Maya had recommended to Tina that, the town look at having a single kind of statement so that we are all using the same thing, which I think in other areas we're using the statement, which is similar to what the rec department uses. As well as I attended overdrive training, for more further, thorough, detailed understanding of the reports that overdrive provides, so that we can make better decisions about collection development, which will be a necessity with a reduced materials budget. There was a meet and greet with the new Senator Dylan Fernandez, and State Rep Kathleen Natra was there. So there was discussions about what kind of support they can offer the town moving forward, and just kind of putting names and faces together, and just trying to open up a communication line. So business cards were passed out and so forth. I participated in the interviews for the Director of Aging, Council on Aging position. That took a couple of days of intense interviews. So hopefully we will have a candidate to present to the town shortly. The planning department is reviewing the town's ADA policy, and they're working to locate grants that would help address issues for for any of those particular departments that needed support. I had mentioned that I had the Massachusetts Office on Disability come through, and that they had done a report with some of the deficiencies that we had here, and so she was thrilled to hear that. So I did provide that to her, so that will be part of the overall report. We've received notification about the first payment of state aid, so that should be arriving shortly if it has not already, reached the accounts. The Kingston Garden Club has been in contact with me, and we have scheduled the next Books in Bloom exhibit for April 8th through the 12th. The reception will be on the 9th.
This is very exciting.
Yes, I kind of want to do one, actually. We are still waiting on scheduling, scheduling for repairs for the LED sign with Sunrise Technologies. And then the last kind of fun highlight of my report is about the issue that we've had, which is the HVAC system in the teen and children's room, which was a result of the printers being on desks, and as people working or moving things and the printers are sliding, that the printers were so close to the thermostats that it was messing them up. So for example, the teen room was 61 degrees, but the system thought it was in the 70s because the printer was throwing off 72-degree temperature heat from that. So they came and, so the HVAC company came to investigate that, and that's exactly what it was. But in the process, they also discovered issues out back. So that was great because it wasn't a, wasted visit, to resolve those. But those are kind of the highlights. Other than I did submit the fiscal 24 annual town report article submission for that. So if there are any other.
And don't forget, you wrote your Kingston Living magazine.
Yes, I wrote my Kingston. Yes, I did that before I went on vacation. Yes, she was very happy that I got it to them early.
Anything you would like to highlight from statistics at this point?
I shall. So the big things that I will, just a couple of things, mainly the year-to-date kind of report. So for the year-to-date, in the months comparison, we are up 10.79% over what we were last year. Ending calendar year. So that was a great improvement over last year's. And then for the overall year-to-date, we are down 45.82%. Which makes sense, but if you look at the stats, that is the best percentage for any public library in OCLN.
If you just happen to look and compare to all
I do, and the thing is, I am not a competitive person. I really am not, but I just love seeing that. I'm not competitive at all.
Would be one.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, but it's not a competition at all. So we are making great strides, as we move forward, and this is obviously data that will be, submitted as we move forward in the budgeting process, so that there's understandings of the work that we're doing and the improvements we're doing, and we don't want to lose the foothold that we have, due to financial restraints that if otherwise can be addressed.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions for Donna? The staff reports were also attached to, in the email. Does anyone have any commentary or questions about any of the staff reports? Aside from the unbelievable crowds in the children's room. Okay, seeing any, we have Deb here, so would you like to give a foundation update?
Sure. So just on the ADA stuff, Donald, I do remember that we had tried to apply for an AARP grant, but we didn't have an ADA policy, a townwide one in place at the time, so we couldn't qualify for it. So that might be something to look into. We had looked into it to help with the curbing issue that was out in the parking lot. That the foundation, we haven't had a foundation meeting since November, so I feel very late. But the foundation did pay for the proofing of the electric sign, so we picked up the tab, the $2,400 for that.
Thank you.
You are welcome. We are going to be featured in Kingston Living for the February issue, so they are coming tonight for pictures. And then we also applied for a T-Mobile hometown grant to cover the cost of the new furniture for the lobby. They offered them up to $50,000. We ticked every box that they asked for. We'll be notified the end of February, the first week in March, if we are granted. So fingers crossed. If not, the foundation will cover the cost for the furniture for the lobby. And I realize the trustees probably haven't seen the updated proofs of the lobby layout.
We can
I can get
include them
those.
in next month.
I'll get those to you guys.
We
for
can
the
include
next
them in
month.
next month's.
Okay.
Email.
Awesome. And I think that is it.
Thank you. So it was busy, even if you didn't have meetings.
Yes.
Payment of bills, but I don't believe that we have any outstanding bills. So then, old business. Business. In the Adams Center, there was something that wanted to use the space perhaps.
Yes, yes. So it's a question about this sustainability of offering ongoing programming at the Adams Center based upon the current staffing levels that we have, and with the offering of exhibits that we've been doing. So this it just recently came up. We had a group ask us about using the space. We accommodated them, and then they asked they'd like to meet, once a month on a particular, third, whatever it was, Tuesday of the month or what have you. But it got me thinking that, by doing so, that we have to have, staffing over there. And unlike other town buildings that do allow public use of the space without having staffing there, I absolutely am against that. And I do not feel comfortable with that at all. Just giving, random community members, at free range access, for safety and concerns, and, whether, there's an issue with HVAC and next thing you know, pushing a button, something happens. So it just brought up the question about whether or not, to offer, repeat programming versus, one-time event. We can look at the accommodations, but to make a commitment, because I don't want to say, that we're going to say, yes, you can do this, but then something happens and we no longer have staff for that. And now I have to ask you to change your meeting date, whether it be short notice or what have you. If you have other options, and that was kind of the situation, was that they had other options, but they just, wanted to, kind of try us out. So looking at that and then looking at some of the agreement, that we have in the application, that, there is more thorough research that has to be taken looking at it, because there's some inconsistencies. Because on one hand, it says in one part that the space can be used during our regular, business hours, but then we're offering times at 8 AM and Sundays.
So do we just need to bring the policy to a meeting?
I think that
Okay.
would be the best thing, is to, to take, to review it and, just see, because I want to be able to offer access, but at the same time, I don't know if it can be sustainable, with the current staffing levels.
So prior to the February meeting, I can send out the current policy, the way that it's written, and we can look at it and see if we need to change some of the language or how it fits with these requests, or this request and potentially other requests we can get. If you're comfortable with that as a way to move
Yeah.
forward.
I mean, we can also, and it could also be a case of that, rather than someone, if we, implemented timelines, for applications that people can't put in a date request more than, 30 days in advance or something like that, so that we're kind of working within a reasonable, like we would know scheduling requests
Right.
at that time, but then, things happen. So but also if it's a case of that, we have exhibits going on, then that truly, for the, week and a half that we have that.
Limits the use of the space.
Exactly.
Well, and it's always been thorny because we have 2 buildings, but not really enough bodies to cover 2 buildings, and
Yeah.
and then there's accessibility issues over there sometimes.
I also think
Okay.
in terms of the columns, it's a heck of a time for us to be
I
having
know.
events in that building. Just aesthetically.
Mhm.
Would you like to see some decaying ornamental columns? Okay.
This is how you set
So-
people up to impress them though, right? You show them that
Yeah.
first, and then hopefully in a few months, when we get this sorted out.
When
we
you're
can
back for your
and
April
laugh.
meeting.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
So we'll
Bring
make
that-
sure that the current policy goes out prior to the February meeting, and then we'll just go through it and see maybe what needs to be changed. And that's always been one of our least favorite policies because it's tricky to work with. Anything else under new business? Not seeing any, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn our meeting at 6:35.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are officially adjourned, 6:35.